Hi, welcome to Ladies of Another View on Beck. Today I'm joined by Jan, Renee, and as always, Mary. And the reason we even have a show called Ladies of Another View is because there's a view not getting heard on the mainstream media. And we've chuckled about it a few times, but really it is so serious. And I want to talk about how serious it is. You know the proverbial frog that if you put him in boiling water, he'll jump out. But if you just increase the heat little by little by little, he's not going to know the difference and he's going to boil to death. And I feel like we're boiling to death. That there was a time, let's first of all look at the First Amendment, free speech. We talk about it a lot. What is it? Here's the words. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. Now, I'm not saying our right of free speech has been taken from us. I'm saying the mainstream media has taken it and run with it, and they use shaming, they have weaponized it, they use intentional omission of stories. We never heard about Hunter Biden because they decided we shouldn't hear about it. And anybody who crosses that line is out. Now, many people can remember Walter Cronkite. He worked in media for 40 years. And in the 60s and 70s, he was called the most trusted man in America. Can you imagine picking anybody out at CBS and saying they're the most trusted person in America? But people believed him and they trusted him. And he was actually asked by both the Republicans and Democrats to run for president because they all thought he's one of us. But that's what a good journalist did. He just reported the news. So you fast forward to Cheryl Atkinson, who worked for CBS for 21 years. And she left because of their lack of coverage. She said for the Obama administration, anything like Benghazi, they wouldn't cover it. They refused to cover anything that didn't fit with their agenda. So maybe technically we have free speech, but this is very serious, I think, because we're being manipulated and taken advantage of, and we're only hearing, even now, when you do a Google search, it's hard to find the stories because it is so controlled and so difficult to get to the truth these days.
I know, I kind of was looking into the Hunter Biden scandal a little bit, and you know, the whole timeline with it is truly suspect. You know, he took this trip with his dad in 2013. We didn't hear too much about it other than the vice president was visiting China and kind of solidifying a relationship, that type of thing. And Hunter was introduced to everyone along with his dad. And then from that time on a 6-day trip, Hunter was nowhere to be found. Don't have any idea what his doings were while his dad was busy negotiating, we'll call it. And the first mention of any of that after the fact was in 2019 in October. And that was by actually NBC, Josh Lederman. He was one of the reporters that went along on the trip. But, you know, not until the laptops were found at the beginning of this year and reported, I think that the mainstream media it put on its show. Anything that doesn't go along with the narrative of the far left, they have 4 different ways that they control that information. They'll discredit it by calling it disinformation. They claim everything is unverified. They call it a conspiracy theory, or they just black it out. And that's what we saw with this story. In October, President Trump said he had an October surprise wherein he kind of realized that this information needed to come out. And he said, we have the laptops, we have the information. You need to know that this was connected to Joe Biden. And today, the Ukrainian government officials held a press conference to denounce Hunter and the Bidens for swindling the Ukrainian citizens out of billions of dollars. But there's no story worth covering? Please.
Well, I've been complaining about this media propaganda for about 3 decades because I've seen it in the healthcare. And, you know, Benjamin Rush, one of our founders, warned us that if we didn't write something into the Constitution that, well, let me read that, in fact, what he said, Benjamin Rush. He said, unless we put medical freedom into the Constitution, the time will come when medicine will organize into an undercover dictatorship to restrict the art of healing to one class of men and deny equal privileges to others. The Constitution of the Republic should make a special privilege for medical freedom as well as religious freedom, Benjamin Rush. Now, you know, if the media controls what we hear, then it controls what most people think. Because a lot of us have not been taught to think critically and question everything and verify it. So you see probably the two most powerful tools in the media that they use is fear and half-truths. Because obviously, if it's so blatant, we're not going to believe it, you know. But if they can mix, you know, 60% truth with the rest lies, then we tend to swallow it because it's, you know, we go, well, that sounds reasonable. I grew up in a family that my dad really taught us to question everything and to verify everything. I would come home from school and I'd make a statement of something I learned in school, and my dad would say, how do you know that's true? Well, my teacher said it. Well, how do you know what she's telling you is true? And it was very annoying. But now I see those tools that he taught me to question everything and verify, verify, verify. And really, what the public school education is doing to people, even private school, they're not teaching our children to think critically. And the media is in cahoots with them because they have a narrative and they want to just ram it down your throats constantly, whatever their narrative is.
Yeah, it's just so frustrating because when you watch the news, you don't even know whether to believe it or not anymore. There are so many stories that pop up that you just don't even know whether to believe them or not. And then when you do a little further digging, you find out that that's not even the truth. What they do is they'll take bits and pieces of a story. If the story airs at all, they'll take bits and pieces and they'll purposely cut off, like someone who's speaking, they purposely cut it off so you only hear like 3 or 4 parts of that sentence instead of the entire sentence. And if they finish the rest of the sentence, you'll hear the whole story, which is frustrating. But there are so many stories that they just absolutely won't report on, and Hunter Biden is one of them, and I think we're going to touch on that further in our second segment. But it's just amazing, and if people like ourselves don't step forward and start telling the truth on TV, and that's why I'm so grateful for Beck right now, is they have a platform where we can get the truth out, and you know, it doesn't necessarily fall left or right. It's just people with a traditional view that aren't getting anything. You don't even know what to believe, but it does start with even omissions, like they hide the stories, don't tell the stories, or report on them falsely.
It is so troubling because it's being weaponized, and our country is being manipulated in a big way. And our young people who don't know any different just assume, well, this must be the truth. And we're going to talk some more about this. We're going to show some examples of how fatal this is to our country. But first, we're going to take a break for these messages, and we'll be right back on Ladies of Another View on Beck.
Beck News brings you real people and real news. Every weekday on KNDB, KNDM, and KRDK. Start your evening with the Dr. Duke Show at 4. Take a fresh look at current events with Ladies of Another View at 4:30. Go down the road with Joel at 5:30. Watch No Apologies with Becker at 9. Cap off your night with No Filter with Debbie at 10. Beck News. Real people, real news.
Capital City Restaurant Supply is your one-stop shop for quality restaurant products for the large to small kitchens. Commercial-grade restaurant and bar supplies, limb game processing equipment, refrigeration, dinnerware, and smallware. We sell everything including the kitchen sink from trusted manufacturers for the chef and all of us. Open to the public since 1971, we are veteran-owned and North Dakota proud. Let us take care of your restaurant and home kitchen needs today by visiting us at 1414 Interstate Loop in Bismarck or on the web at capitalcityrestaurantsupply.com.
Hi, I'm Dennis Haugen, along with my sons Andy and Mike, and we're showing our support for wind energy in North Dakota.
Wind energy has provided farmers like us with a steady stream of income that's not tied to the weather like crops and cattle are.
Another bonus is that wind farm owners are required to maintain the roads leading up to the turbines. Because of that, oftentimes these roads are the best in the county.
Wind energy is good for landowners, it's good for the land, it's good for our economy, and it's good for North Dakota.
For the greatest selection and full menu offering is the Four Seasons Restaurant and Ice Cream Parlor in Garrison. Succulent sandwiches, big breakfasts served all day, and delicious desserts. Easy access in and out for campers and RVs. The Four Seasons Restaurant at the top of Main Street, Garrison.
Some things in life are hard. That's why banking shouldn't be. Cornerstone Bank.
Hi, welcome back to Ladies of Another View on Back. And during the last segment, we were talking about the news media manipulating us. And we're getting kind of fired up about it because, kind of is a mild term, because who likes to be manipulated? They are hurting our country in a big way and brainwashing people and lying to us. Even the media is being cleansed. There's a cleansing going on. Last summer, James Bennett resigned from the New York Times, and his crime was he allowed a GOP senator to have his letter to the editor, I mean, isn't this the opinion page, letters to the editor, say that he thinks we should be sending in troops to stop the rioting. And because of that, there was a lot of backlash, and he needed to resign. Also last summer, John Koss, he was 35 years, he still is with the Chicago Tribune. He wrote a letter saying, isn't it funny that these cities where all the riots are also have very liberal, democratic governors and mayors and lawmakers that were funded by George Soros. Now, all of that is on record. He didn't make anything up, and he was attacked by the Newspaper Guild of Chicago, and they wanted him to resign. Well, he didn't resign, but they did move him from page 2 back further into just the opinion page. So even if you are the media, you better toe the line, or you're going to be either fired or put hidden deeper into the pages. And I just want to use some examples so you just don't say, oh, you know, she's a right-wing conspiratorialist. Let's look at, okay, we keep talking about Hunter Biden, and we're going to keep on talking about it because guess who drew that? Hunter Biden. I don't know, not my taste.
Must be COVID.
Must be on drugs. Anyways, who knows whether he was or not. But isn't it funny that the New York Times and Vanity Fair made a big deal about, oh, look, he's going to have an art show. Do you guys care? Do you guys care that Hunter Biden is going to have an art show? But only the New York Post reported on Biden's secret emails that can concern our national security. Only the New York Post. And they were censored and silenced and banned on every kind of social media, and all the other media ignored it. Isn't that funny? They're not very curious, but boy, have an art show and we'll talk about that. If you're a Democrat, I don't think Republicans get to have art shows of any relevance to them. So here's some examples, though, of you know, every year there's a March for Life. 500,000 people on the National Mall. They ignore it. That's not news. Yet, what about, does anybody remember Justin Smollett, who said he was attacked It fit their narrative. They
Exactly.
could weaponize that. Now, I'm not a genius. I don't have any special knowledge that anybody else has. But I knew right from the beginning it was a lie. I said, there's no way that happened, that people with a MAGA hat and said, this is MAGA country, if that didn't sound fake. But he was on every news channel. He was on the talk shows. The news media, they didn't even take a breath. They put him on all over the place. The same thing with Nick Sandmann. He was harassed. They had a video of a Native American activist in his face. That poor high school student had his whole life blow up in his face because they took a little snippet of a video to make it look like he was racist and he was being a smart aleck kid. Luckily, he has sued and won because they were ready to destroy his life because it fit their agenda. And just one more thing, and then I want to hear what you guys have to say. Okay, Epstein. Need I say more? Seriously? There's no way they believe he committed suicide, and yet every mainstream media reporter reports him as having committed suicide. So here we go. There are hundreds of memes because the regular average person knows. You don't need to be a genius, but we know Epstein did not kill himself. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the status, that is the condition of our news media, that they can say that with a straight face and expect us to believe it.
I don't think the Epstein issue is ever going to go away. There's no way that you can be in the most secure place in the country on suicide watch with cameras and all kinds of guards, and all of a sudden all of those things fail at the same time in the exact time that you need for that to happen. There's chatter, of course, that he's not even dead, and that'll come to pass where they'll prove it or they'll disprove it. But you take instances like that, you take the Hunter Biden scandal and see that if you just look at all of the business dealings that this gentleman was involved in, every one of them was to the detriment of the United States. The companies that he purchased or has stock in, or whatever the monetary reward was, had to do with the Chinese government being able to manipulate the United States of America. If you think that they are not involved in any way, shape, or form in this past election, you are sadly, sadly mistaken, and there is enough information and evidence out there to prove just that.
Well, those are all, we all know that the corruption is going on, and we see that slant, from the liberal media and how they censor stuff on the right that they don't like, and people on the right, and news on the right. But what shocks me the most is we have now, it used to be 36,000 scientists, now we have 50,000 scientists globally on the right and the left, okay, who are completely censored. And these are Nobel laureates, these are leading epidemiologists all over the world. And why? That's not even a United States thing. This is a global issue. And these people are not idiots. And these are like, why is academia ignoring these scientists? That is more scary to me than what's going on. I mean, it's scary what's going on in the United States with the censorship. But when you have scientists who are saying, listen, take off your mask, go back to living, open up your job, don't comply. This is nonsense. And globally, they are being censored. That should put everybody at very deep concern, because you look at countries like China, the Soviet Union. Where did we see this? In other countries where they controlled North Korea, where they
well,
literally
that's the difference. You're talking about communist countries.
Yeah.
And that's why I wanted to say, what's the definition of free speech? What's the First Amendment?
Yeah.
It's not our government doing it. It's the
our
news
media.
media
It's
who
the
are
media.
driving their agenda.
And it's happening globally.
But who's driving the media? I mean, we have
It's
to ask
money.
that
You
question.
got to follow the money.
Absolutely.
You have to follow the money. But I get back to, you had brought up Nick Sandmann. And, our kids were also on that March for Life trip. And the gentleman that made the accusations against him, He was actually one of the protesters up here during the DAPL protest. So he is a Native American activist that just goes around the country to stir up crap. And he got it thrown back at him this time, thank goodness. But the same thing with the March for Life. We have the March for Life, 500,000 people. There's not a word on TV. But then we have ladies dressing up as genitalia, and excuse me, they are all over the front page because they're standing up for women's rights. It's like, what kind of a woman would actually do that, and what kind of message are they sending? So anyway.
You know, it bothers me because the media isn't even pretending anymore. They're not even pretending to be unbiased. It's like, yeah, we're biased. What of it? And this is the news we want you to know. So coming up on the next segment, we have an amazing guest, Dr. Michael Rechtenwald, and he's going to tell us about what's gone on in academia. He was a NYU professor and a Marxist, but he isn't anymore. So we'll be right back on Ladies of Another View on Beck.
Jeez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's Best Contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
In southwestern and south central North Dakota, on any given day at any given moment, a Dakota Community Bank and Trust customer is logging in or signing on to do their online or mobile banking. We believe that community banking can blend both the past with down-home customer service in-house and the future with modern banking conveniences and technology for our customers anywhere, like here or here, all while honoring our long-standing tradition of community-first oriented banking here at Dakota Community Bank and Trust.
My wife was diagnosed with early stage Alzheimer's. We talked about it and we kind of decided we'd be a little bit proactive and try to start making provisions. So we started looking here, and Eventide worked out to be pretty much the perfect answer. I guess I didn't expect it to be so nice. The staff here are terrific. We enjoy it.
They say when the going gets tough, the tough get going. At OK Tire, we're here to keep you going. From Firestone tires and replacements to retreads and even Firestone tracks, we have you covered. Our certified Firestone experts are ready to get you back up and running, no matter if you're on site or in the field, saving you time and money. OK Tire, we keep the tough going.
Now is the best time to plan for your 2021 farm equipment needs. North Dakota-based Summers Manufacturing is currently offering early order savings. Take advantage of big savings on North America's broadest tillage line, including the Super Kohler Samurai and the innovative BRT Renegade, as well as the best-built, best-backed land rollers in the industry. Talk to your Summers dealer today or go to summersmfg.com to learn more about early order savings available on all Summers equipment.
Welcome back to Ladies of Another View on Beck. And during the last segment, we were talking about the news media and how controlled it is and agenda-driven. We have a guest, Dr. Michael Rechtenwald, and he's going to talk about what's it like in academia. Now, you need to know that he was a Marxist professor for about 20 years at NYU, New York University, and he was the head of the Liberal Studies program. He's the author of 11 books. Most recently, the one that we're going to talk a lot about today is Beyond Woke. He's also written Springtime for Snowflakes, Social Justice, and its Postmodern Parentage. Welcome to the show, Michael, or Dr. Rechtenwald.
Hello, hi. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. I feel like each chapter of your book could be an entire show in and of itself. But let's get started. You started out as a Marxist, and you were a liberal. What changed all that?
Well, I think whenever I came out against the social justice excesses on campus at NYU and across the country, I was almost immediately attacked by leftists among my faculty, and they sort of showed me the character of what I was believing in, and changed my views remarkably. But it was really to see sort of the totalitarian edge and the authoritarianism of the woke crowd that totally opened up my eyes to what was actually behind the ideology and the political ideology that I embraced.
So were you not aware of that before, that your eyes were opened up, but were you not aware of it, and were you possibly even a part of it before?
No, I wasn't. I actually considered myself rather a left libertarian communist, and that is, I believed that, the working class would take over the state and the means of production, and the state would disappear, and there would be no need for rulers, and there would be no dictatorship, that it didn't have to go that way, but that in fact, there would be sort of a more or less happy utopian future. But I saw that I never had seen the kind of character underneath of it all, believe it or not, after writing and studying Marxism for dozens of years. I hadn't seen just what was the character of the people and what it took to implement, and when I became canceled, as it were, it all became quite clear to me.
Thank you so much for joining us today. For our audience, could you explain what critical theory is?
Oh, my, critical theory. Critical theory is a body of scholarship, so-called, that was imported into the United States roughly in the 1930s, early 1930s, when a group of Marxists, they're really neo-Marxists, arrived in the United States and set up shop in at Columbia University in New York. Cultural neo-Marxism or critical theory is a school of thought that is a neo-Marxist school of thought that believes that they basically gave up hope on the working class as the agent of history, and they started to look for other means for changing society. Because the socialist revolution that had taken place in the Soviet Union was not spreading to the West and the rest of the world, least of all the United States. So what they thought was that there must be something going on in the culture that is the problem. And so they started studying cultural and social issues and critiquing them. And this is what turned into critical theory, from which has been born critical race theory, critical whiteness studies, critical legal theory, et cetera, et cetera.
Michael, I really love the work you've done, and I am so shocked to see somebody do such a 180. And I was listening to last night on Glenn Beck. I was kind of going over some interviews that you had done, and I noticed that you were talking about this starting like over 100 years ago. The indoctrination in education, and I found that interesting because I homeschool my granddaughters, the classical model we're using, and when I watched you in Bismarck or listened to you in Bismarck, you really really advocated not sending your children to private school or even public school. Right. And you made some statements about college and so forth that was a little shocking, and yet I totally could comprehend what you were saying. So I guess my first question was, going back to 100 years of how this started.
Well, yeah, it started with this Frankfurt School of Critical Theory. And then what happened is then they started to train teachers at Columbia Teachers College in socialist thought. A group of Columbia scholars, education scholars, went over to the Soviet Union in the 20s in order to learn the system of education that the Soviet Union was using. And they brought their ideas back to the United States. And from there, they started training the teachers that would be populating grade schools, high schools, and universities. It spread through largely, first of all, through various departments in the universities, education, as I mentioned, sociology, and English studies, particularly. In other words, the home of English literature and other such programs. And then it sort of metastasized into various other departments of knowledge, and then eventually just became so widespread that it's almost inscrutable. It's almost impossible to just trace all the areas of thought that have been touched by it because it's so widespread. So this has been going on for 50 years. And this is what the cultural Marxists have called the long march through the institutions, which is a revolution by another means. Rather than trying to overthrow capitalism and the state directly, they sought to subvert the ideological instruments or apparatuses of the social body. And as such, they sought out to take over, in effect, the ideological apparatuses like education and other media and other institutions. And that's really what's been afoot. And that's what's led to the present state of affairs, such that you have, Antifa members burning down buildings and, wide-scale belief in socialism and amongst the millennials and other generations. And just to basically this whole wokeness, right, that we're now under, this whole woke phenomenon really can be traced all the way back to this development.
So I have a question. I'm wondering about your background when you were growing up. Like, which way did you lean, and then when did you decide to become a Marxist, and how did that happen? Or who's your mentors? Was it your parents? Was it educators? We only have about a minute left of this segment.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I grew up in a working class background on the north side of Pittsburgh. My father was a contractor, a home remodeler. Was a large Catholic family of 9 children, and I used to go to war with my father. We used to argue, and he would defend the United States, and I'd actually defend the Soviet Union. We used to have these arguments in the living room, watching television and things like that. So I think that these ideas were permeating society already. I don't know how on earth I developed them in terms of how I came to sympathize with the Soviet Union, but I did.
Well, when we come back, I want to hear a little bit more about shaming and shunning and how you became the victim of controlling. You're not to have open minds in academia anymore. You are to have an agenda and promote that, right? So we'll talk a little bit more about that when we come back with Ladies of Another View on Back.
Howdy folks, it's the County Line Cafe. I reckon it's time you're due for a hearty meal. So saddle up for the day with one of our Hey Bossin breakfast homemade soups. Fill your grill at a salad bar, sink your teeth into our famous County Line burger and barbecue ribs. Top it off with spoon rattling pie with a calm roll that's sure to put a smile on even the toughest outlaws. Shake the dirt off the boots each night and warm up with the gang. Tell them about it, Stacy.
I can't wait to see you at the County Line.
Since opening in Hebron in 1940, Dakota Community Bank and Trust has been your hometown bank. Our mission has been to provide modern banking convenience with old-fashioned hometown service. We've grown with the communities we serve through year-round events, countless sponsorships, and nearly 7,000 hours of volunteering each year. Learn more about our 80-year history at dakotacommunitybank.com.
Jeez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's Best Contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
For the greatest selection and full menu offering is the Four Seasons Restaurant and Ice Cream Parlor in Garrison. Succulent sandwiches, big breakfasts served all day, and delicious desserts. Easy access in and out for campers and RVs. The Four Seasons Restaurant at the top of Main Street, Garrison.
Are you a thrill seeker, sightseer, or day tripper? The Ford Bronco Sport SUV is built for you. Four Bears Casino is giving away a 2021 Ford Bronco Sport loaded with a ton of interior space, safari-style roof, smooth suspension for any terrain, and easy-to-clean surfaces. Qualify now just by playing your favorite slots at Four Bears Casino. Double points on Sundays. Also get in on Super Senior Wednesdays, slot turning Thursdays, and hot seats on Wednesdays and Thursdays. Spin into Four Bears Casino and Lodge for chances to win.
Some things in life are hard. That's why banking shouldn't be. Cornerstone Bank.
Welcome back to Ladies of Another View on Back. We're talking with Dr. Michael Rechtenwald. He's the author of 11 books, and we're especially talking about Beyond Woke today. And he is giving us some insights into what has gone on in academia in order to really push that Marxist far left agenda and how they keep professors under control. And yesterday, I visited with you yesterday before the show, and you shared with me that within 48 hours, your academic career blew up when suddenly you were not lockstep with the liberals. And during that time, you were going through some personal difficulties too, because you just learned that your son, this was 3 years ago, that your son had stage 4 cancer, and he was 22 or 23.
Right.
And you had this come to Jesus moment where you really reconnected with God, and you felt him telling you that everything was going to be okay no matter what happened. And I was struck by you telling me that even if he died, everything was going to be okay. So suddenly eternity was there before you.
Right. Absolutely. Let me address the first part first. It's the easier part, I guess. That is about the kind of mob mentality that has taken over academia. There's a kind of herd instinct in human beings, I think. And the herd instinct makes one feel safe in a herd and unsafe when one is not in a herd. So there's kind of a double reinforcement that herd mentality comes with. There's the sense of power that comes with being in the herd, and there's a sense of fear which comes with it being outside of the herd. So there's a kind of double compulsion to be a herd member. And this has always been manifested, especially in peer pressure, the notion of peer pressure. But now peer pressure has circled around, has revolved around this kind of woke ideology. So that woke ideology becomes the pressure that is imputed to people that they sense being very much in operation, and that they better adhere to, lest they be called out, lest they be thrown out of the herd and become one of the deviants from the herd, and thus hunted down in effect. So that's what happened to me in the university after I came out against the social justice excesses in an interview in the student newspaper. Within 48 hours, I was called into the dean's office, put on leave, strong-armed into that leave, really, and then denounced by a committee called the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Group, who effectively condemned me for wrong think. They said that I was wrong for the thoughts that I was having. And so that led the rest of the faculty to then shun me. I had over 100 faculty members in my program where I taught. And each and every one of them, except for maybe one person, shunned me universally, such that they wouldn't even let me on an elevator with them. They wouldn't be seen with me anywhere. I couldn't do committee work. I basically became pariah on campus. During this time, while I'm being hounded, and more or less shunned and shamed, at least they would have me shamed by these people, I learned that my son had stage 4 lymphoma. And that is very scary. And he was terrified of dying. And it was on my 58th birthday when I learned this. And I was driving back from New York to Pittsburgh, where he lived. I basically turned to the heavens through the windshield of my car, to be quite frank about it. And I said, "What are you trying to do to me? Kill me?" This was to the sky, to God, really. And I got an answer, and the answer was, no matter what happens, he's going to be all right, and he'll be blessed, in fact. There's nothing to worry about. And that to me spoke of something beyond the material realm, that there was something beyond this life, and that I had a moment of awakening at that time, and an instantaneous avowal of faith.
That is wonderful.
I love that God has miracles showing to us all the time, and I understand he's doing better.
He's completely cured.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You know, with all of these things that are being accepted into the mainstream language, like trigger warnings and safe spaces and social justice and the like, how do we show parents what's happening to their children before they send them off to slaughter in these universities?
Well, I'd say the first step is to sort of immunize them against it. I would say you need to buttress them in the values of individual liberty and the rights of the individual, and the importance of individuality and their own uniqueness. So I would really speak to the student about, look, everyone is a unique individual, in my opinion, created by God as such, and that there is no need for you to conform to values that you don't hold, and that we will support you in your struggle if you happen to come up against values that are going to be antagonistic to you, or that are going to try to shame you into embracing. And then I would send them on a path of research and reading that included, authors that don't come up in the canon anymore in university systems. Authors that value individual rights and that value the individual as such, and that also espouse the virtues and values of liberty that we esteem and hold dear in the United States. At least a good deal of us still do, thank goodness.
That's great advice.
Some civics lessons wouldn't hurt. What's the United States founded on? What are the 4 principles? Why are they better than others? Yes.
What do you think about making George Orwell's 1984 required reading? Do you think it would have any effect?
I'm going to have to make a joke about that. The problem is the left seems to take it as a guidebook rather than a warning.
There you go.
True.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Michael, I asked you at the meeting a question in Bismarck, and I'm going to ask you the same question because things have happened since that meeting. I think I was the only independent at that meeting, okay? And if you remember, I asked you if you knew who Maurice Duverger was. And
I remember that.
He's a political sociologist and a communist, and he really promoted the two-party system as a means to bring us to communism, to continue to move us left. And to me, You know, I was a political junkie, Republican. I left the Republican Party in 2016. My instincts were screaming at me, don't vote.
We have 2 minutes, so let's let him
Anyway,
answer.
I'm just wondering, what do you think about the two-party system where it's brought us?
Well, I think that the two-party system is not as bipolar or bifurcated as it appears. It seems to be a uniparty in many respects. That there are Republicans and Democrats that seem to fold under the pressure of what I will call statist interests, and that in fact the both of the parties are floating to the left. That's true. So the theorist in question was actually right that is what happens under the two-party system, and that I don't identify so much with a party as I do with principles.
Thank you.
That's a great way to look at it, and so many of us are like that, that there are things that we agree with or disagree with on both sides. But so just quickly then, in the last 3 years, have any of those instructors come around that you were in charge of? Have more of them come around? You said there was 1 or 2 that were okay. Have more come around to see your way? We have about a minute left.
Yeah, I mean, I had a lot of leftist and communist friends and academic friends, and I have found that more and more people are actually seeking me out and telling me that I'm saying what's absolutely necessary, that to keep it up, and that, you know, my work will be appreciated, if not now, then in the future, and that I must continue to do what I'm doing. And I believe I'm on a mission. I don't mean to crack a joke, but it's a mission from God. And it's something that I have seen more and more people finally coming around and saying what you've been saying about the academic world, what you've been saying about woke culture, what you've been saying about the sort of totalitarianism that's on the rise needs to be said, and your analysis is absolutely required at this moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I am so glad you've written this book. We support your mission, and we can see it. It is so needed. Thank you, Dr. Rechtenwald, for being on our show today. I hope we can have you on again soon. We'll be right back after these messages. Thanks.
Howdy, folks. It's the Caroline Cafe. I reckon it's time you're due for a hearty meal. So saddle up for the day with one of our Hey Bossin' breakfast homemade soups. Fill your grill at our salad bar. Sink your teeth into our famous Caroline burger and barbecue ribs. Top it off with spoon-rattling pie with a cum roll that's sure to put a smile on even the toughest outlaws. Shake the dirt off the boots each night and warm up with the gang. Tell them about it, Stacy.
I can't wait to see you at the county line.
Hi, I'm Dennis Haugen, along with my sons Andy and Mike, and we're showing our support for wind energy in North Dakota.
Wind energy has provided farmers like us with a steady stream of income that's not tied to the weather like crops and cattle are.
Another bonus is that wind farm owners are required to maintain the roads leading up to the turbines. Because of that, oftentimes these roads are the best in the county.
Wind energy is good for landowners, it's good for the land, it's good for our economy, and it's good for North Dakota.
Capital City Restaurant Supply is your one-stop shop for quality restaurant products for the large to small kitchens. Commercial-grade restaurant and bar supplies, limb game processing equipment, refrigeration, dinnerware, and smallware. We sell everything including the kitchen sink for trusted manufacturers for the chef and all of us. Open to the public since 1971, we are veteran-owned and North Dakota proud. Let us take care of your restaurant and home kitchen needs today by visiting us at 1414 Interstate Loop in Bismarck or on the web at capitalcityrestaurantsupply.com.
My wife was diagnosed with early stage Alzheimer's. We talked about it, and we kind of decided we'd be a little bit proactive and try to start making provisions. So we started looking here, and Eventide worked out to be pretty much the perfect answer. I guess I didn't expect it to be so nice. The staff here are terrific. We enjoy it.
They say when the going gets tough, the tough get going. At OK Tire, we're here to keep you going. From Firestone tires and replacements to retreads and even Firestone tracks, we have you covered. Our certified Firestone experts are ready to get you back up and running. no matter if you're on site or in the field, saving you time and money. OK Tire. We keep the tough going.
Now is the best time to plan for your 2021 farm equipment needs. North Dakota-based Summers Manufacturing is currently offering early order savings. Take advantage of big savings on North America's broadest tillage line, including the Super Kohler Samurai and the innovative VRT Renegade, as well as the best-built, best-backed land rollers in the industry. Talk to your Summers dealer today or go to summersmfg.com to learn more about early order savings available on all Summers equipment.
Welcome back to Ladies of Another View on Beck. And we've been talking about the news and academia and how they've been weaponizing the news and information and controlling people and brainwashing, and really appreciate Dr. Rechtenwald's insight into what it was like being a Marxist professor before he came over to the other side. And I highly recommend his book, Beyond Woke.
If I could just add to that, a lot of times we do have speakers that come to town, and I wasn't aware when he was coming in. And so there are so many speakers that are available. It'd be just great. Hopefully we can maybe get some links up in the future where you can find these different speakers. So we're still a work in progress, but I think it'd be great so that just our viewers can go ahead and attend any of those seminars.
Yes, Mary, I'm glad you brought that up. And you can always email us too at anotherview@beck.com. I think I got that email correctly. But if you know of speakers coming to town, let us know. Maybe we can have them on ahead of time, or we can at least let people know. Yeah. So now it's time for the lighter side, and we need it today. I'm going to tell you a little story that really touched me and really gives you insight into the human spirit. It's called The Balloon Story. A teacher gave a balloon to every student who had to inflate it, write their name on it, and throw it in the hallway. The teacher then mixed all the balloons. The students were given 5 minutes to find their own balloons. Despite a hectic search, no one found their balloon. At that point, the teacher told the students to take the first balloon they found and hand it to the person whose name was written on it. Within 5 minutes, everyone had their own balloon. The teacher said to the students, "These balloons are like happiness. We will never find it if everyone is looking for their own. But if we care about other people's happiness, we will find ours too."
Sweet.
It's so true. And you hear this little story. I don't know if it's true or not, but the moral of the story is true for sure. Is when you look out, and we had Carolyn Grimes on our show, and she was the actress that played Zuzu in It's a Wonderful Life. And she had some pretty tragic situations. And that's what she told us was one of the things that helped her get over that was when she started looking out for other people's happiness and finding ways to help others, that it started coming back to her too.
That story reminds me of a poem. It actually came from Oscar Hammerstein, if you remember any of the musicals from back in the 60s and 70s. And it says, "A bell is not a bell until someone rings it. A song is not a song until someone sings it. Love wasn't put in the heart to stay, for love isn't love till you give it away."
That's precious.
Yeah.
Boy, that's such a basic biblical concept, the law of reaping or sowing and reaping, and what we plant comes back to us. And it really works. It's like the law of gravity. What goes up comes down, and what we sow comes back to us. So I know my mom always used to say, if we were having a hard time or feeling depressed or whatever as a teenager, I remember her saying, get your eyes off yourself and focus on somebody else. Because when you spend too much time focusing on you, then it's all about you. And so we need to make it about other people.
Yes.
I agree with all of you guys. And I've had this saying since college with our sorority. It was, to receive much, you must give much. And when you start living that lifestyle, things come back to you tenfold. And so I've always, some people are givers, some people are takers, and they'll always be that way. You can't change them. But the more you give, it's just a good feeling.
And sometimes it's a little bit of a risk. We took in 2 boys from Kenya 3 years apart. Best thing we ever did but there were some bumps with one of them. You know, it wasn't always easy. We did foster care. We ran a group home. Sometimes it takes a little bit of risk, but just keep giving. And a lot of times people feel they got burned when they gave. You know, just keep giving. It's not, it doesn't matter. Just move on.
If they did get burned, you know, that builds character and strength too. It
Yes.
really does. And so there's a life lesson to be learned in that as well.
But the hurt might be now, but the reward might
Right.
be later.
It doesn't
It's the
mean
old
your
blessing
gift.
and a curse, blessing and a curse.
Yes.
And it doesn't lessen your gift. You still, regardless of what they do with it,
Right.
you gave.
Yes.
Any final thoughts?
Well, I think all of that was just, you know, take that
Yeah.
in, take it home with you, and manifest it in your life.
I remember when I made, I remember praying once saying, Lord, I want to obey you. Whatever you want me to do, I want to obey you. But please don't send me to Africa. I'm afraid of snakes and spiders.
Africa's warmer than North Dakota, though, so.
Then you don't want to come to our place either because we're full of snakes, rattlesnakes. You get used to it after a while, though. But my final thought today is I have one of my children is having a 20th birthday party, or a birthday today. So it's just, she was born in a blizzard. Now I think it's maybe 30 degrees out today, but she was born in a blizzard. I got to the hospital and I was holding her 22 minutes later. So here's my shout out to Claire.
Yeah.
Happy
Happy birthday, Claire. Yeah, if we had more time, we'd sing happy birthday and then she would kill you. So we'll skip that. Tomorrow on Ladies of Another View on Back, we're going to talk about clearing out some of that Christmas clutter. And we're also going to talk about the Nashville bombings and take a look at what's going on with that. Tomorrow on Ladies of Another View on Beck.
Beck News brings you real people and real news. Every weekday on KNDB, KNDM, and KRDK. Start your evening with the Dr. Duke Show at 4. Take a fresh look at current events with Ladies of Another View at 4:30. Go down the road with Joel at 5:30. Watch No Apologies with Becker at 9. Cap off your night with No Filter with Debbie at 10. Beck News. Real people, real news.